He'll throw it in the backcourt to Şengün. Şengün will dribble it up. Şengün with 5 seconds with 4 to Smith. Fired a 3 up, banked it, nothing there. Payton's got it. Ball game's over. The Warrior losing streak is over as they have hung on for a huge win, 99-93, as they get the victory without Stephen Curry and without Draymond Green.
No, Houston, you have a problem. And the problem is the Golden State Warriors. And not just the 99-93 win tonight. And welcome to Warriors wrap-up here on 95.7 The Game. 15 straight wins for the Warriors against the Rockets. They, for some reason, have this team's number, despite not having Curry, despite not having Draymond, despite the Rockets being a relative full strength, at whole strength. The Warriors snap a 5-game skid, and they get it done with, I think, a player that everyone has been waiting to emerge. Jonathan Kaminga. Tonight was his night, and Chase Center was his stage as he puts up a career-high 33 points, 14 of which in the fourth quarter, played all 12 minutes. His first game this season, by the way, in which he has played more than 30 on the year. He played with the confidence that we saw during last season, the final drive, the final 12 minutes, and the final push that the Warriors needed to seemingly put away their close kind of late-game offensive woes in which they blew 3 double-digit second-half leads in the last 5 losses. Jonathan Kaminga, along with Andrew Wiggins, along with a host of characters, helped put the Warriors over the top in a defense-first, offensive-last type of performance tonight to move the Golden State Warriors back to 13-8 and into the win column. And I think overall a game that I don't know how many people were that confident the Warriors were going to win tonight. But clearly, this was a game that I think they needed. And not just the win, as far as getting the monkey off their back and putting the losing streak behind them, but the way that they did it, again, I think kind of gets us back to where the Warriors were at the beginning of this season, and we saw somewhat of the template. The Warriors right now also, by the way, 4-1 without Curry so far this season, 1-1 without Draymond, but a defensive-first approach with having enough players that can get it done on the offensive end, and even sometimes turning defense into offense in order to kind of slug it out in a rock fight type of game. This was not an offensive explosion. Both teams didn't even crack 100 in this game. But the Houston Rockets are a team that entered second place in the Western Conference. They had been struggling a little bit, lost their last time out to Sacramento, played in some close games prior to, but that's a really tough Houston Rockets team that a lot of people have faith in taking that next step in kind of their young core. You saw Şengün down the stretch. Jalen Green had a decent second half after an atrocious first half. And then the likes of Fred VanVleet, the frankly annoying Dylan Brooks, that's not a bad team. That's a team that will drag you into the mud and try and force you to play their kind of basketball game. And I thought for most of the night, the Warriors didn't allow them to do that. Again, they didn't play perfectly in this game, but they did what they had to. I thought defensively, they forced the Rockets into some tough shots or into shots that you would like them to take. And I thought that the biggest example of that was the amount of threes that Dylan Brooks was hoisting, specifically in that first quarter. But I thought Steve Kerr stepped out of his comfort zone offensively, leaned into more of a pick-and-roll approach, especially down the stretch. This looked like a 1990s basketball game tonight in which the Warriors did enough offensively and were able to really, I think, in the kind of way, like this was not a pretty game, but it was the game that they needed, the kind of game that you need to get back on the right track and get your season into some sort of balance. That's what they were lacking the last 5 games, and it felt like a here-we-go-again moment maybe down the stretch. But the fact that they were able to close this game in the fashion that they did with the players that they did, and particularly the Jonathan Kaminga performance that they had, to me, was ultimately very impressive. Again, this is Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. My name is Evan Giddings. The number is 888-957-9570, Comcast Business Text line as well. And we're already getting texts coming in. A gritty, physical brand of ball. That's from the 262. I'm 100% with you. But the Warriors, it wasn't as if they're playing sort of up and down. This was a game that I think the two biggest things that stood out to me. Number one, 0-0, Jonathan Kaminga. And then number two, this was the first game that made me believe that Wiggins and Kaminga can work together. Now, for about a year and a half, and I think it was kind of a combination of Kaminga starting trying to figure himself out first, along with the fact that Wiggins has undergone, some kind of a roller coaster ride of emotions off the court. For whatever reason, those two were unable to play together, or even when they did play together, they didn't really work. And what I mean by that is what I saw tonight, it wasn't just combining for 56 points, the most that they combined for in a basketball game. But more importantly, they succeeded on the floor together. Jonathan Kaminga and Andrew Wiggins were, I think, the two most impactful Golden State Warriors players in this basketball game. You look at the plus-minus, you'll see Kevon Looney, who is also awesome in this game, a plus 21. Buddy Hield, the plus-minus lies a little bit for him. I didn't think he had a great game tonight. Obviously, 1 of 6 from downtown. He was a plus 18. But Kaminga and Wiggins, that wings pairing, that is how you win gritty, physical basketball games in the modern NBA. And even in a type of throwback game, when you have those sort of 3s and 4s or interchangeable wings that can establish ferocity and physicality, I think it adds a completely different dynamic to this Warriors team that when Steph and Draymond come back, I'm curious to see how they kind of keep that because, again, I think one of the reasons why Kaminga was so forceful in this game, and you saw it immediately from the jump, was because he knew going into this game, I can shoot it as many times as I want. And he got up, I think, 6 shots in the first 6 minutes. He had 8 points, was hot out of the gates. And then it was, again, a little bit of the you go, now I go. Like, I don't. And this is where I think we saw the wings pairing kind of come together at the end of this basketball game, where Wiggins and Kaminga didn't just take turns, but they were both succeeding when they were both on the floor. At the beginning of this game, okay, it was Kaminga's turn, and then Wiggins came in. It was Wiggins' turn in that second quarter. Then it was Kaminga's turn in the second half, and then slowly they kind of figured out how to mesh the two together to the point where the offense could kind of flow through either of them. They ran a lot of pick and rolls, especially for Wiggins, to kind of get him going. And then down the stretch, Kaminga obviously did what he did, but he was utterly sensational in this basketball game. For the 510, the Comcast Business text line, team effort. Great game by JK, and Pods and Loon crashed the boards tonight. Total team effort. I'm also right there with you. As we kind of go through this game, this was one that I thought, look, you start Warriors, they get out to a hot start, 11-3 right out of the gates. Kaminga hits his first 2 shots, fade away in a wing 3 to get him off to a 6-0 start. Then Houston, I thought they took really bad shots at the beginning of this game, and you got to credit the rest of the Warriors for kind of forcing him into that, but they missed 10 of their first 12. Kaminga and Pods had a nice start to this game. They were +6 in the first 9 minutes. And then the benches, I thought, is where, look, the depth overall, the Warriors kind of had to elevate players, and Kaminga's someone that generally has come off the bench, steps into the starting lineup. That makes your bench a little bit weaker. So Kerr had to get kind of creative. We saw Pat Spencer in this game. We saw Kyle Anderson play the point guard position with basically no ball handler on the floor, I think at the tail end of the third quarter. But they had to get creative in order to figure out how to make this thing work together. Houston hit 6 of its last 13 shots of the first quarter after starting 2 for 12. Wiggins only had 1 basket in the first quarter, and at the time I kind of wrote this note down that they still hadn't figured out how to get him and Kaminga going at the same time. That again corrected itself. It was a slugfest of the first quarter that I think kind of set the tone for the basketball game. Houston was up by 4. They were up 22-18 at the end of the first quarter. And then the Warriors began to hit a couple threes. Wiggins had a 4-point play, a lay-in. Buddy Hield hit his first three-pointer. Moody hit his first three-pointer. And the Warriors finished the half on a 9-1 run. Wiggins had 12 in the second quarter, including that 4-point play that I mentioned to help the Warriors take a 49-43 lead into the half after holding Houston to just 38% shooting in the first half. And then in that third quarter, that's when they began to extend. They got their 15-point lead at 61-46 after Wiggins hit a pull-up three-pointer. I thought that the combination of Podziemski, Kaminga, and Wiggins looked a little bit tired at around the 4-minute mark of that third quarter, right after a Rockets 7-0 run. I thought they were a little sloppy with the ball, particularly Podziemski not making necessarily smart plays with the ball, gave the Rockets a little bit of life. And then, when it was a 4-point game, that's when Kerr went to the de facto slow-mo point guard role. He basically rested Kaminga, Pods, and also Looney, down the stretch of that third quarter. And I thought that was really an important stretch of this game. Obviously, we'll get to the fourth quarter and the Kaminga heroics, but this was a game that I thought at the end of the third, Kerr did a nice job of basically leaning into Anderson as the primary ball handler to allow some rest for players that he would then need in the fourth quarter. Pods ended up playing damn near 37 minutes in this basketball game. Kaminga got to 33. He played the entire 12 of the fourth quarter, and then he had to go back to Looney, Kerr did, because Trayce Jackson-Davis did not play very well in this game. And Looney was also looking, I thought, pretty fresh down the stretch of that game. So the final 3:25 to go from a 4-point lead to a 7-point lead, 73-67, I thought was a massive stretch of this game where Kyle Anderson, in my opinion, gets a lot of credit for doing basically what Kyle Anderson does. Any lineup you throw him into, he's not going to pop off the page. He's not going to hit a bunch of threes, well, unless he's at the Boston Garden. He's not going to necessarily wow you, but every lineup that he plays in just seems to work. And it's almost like he's a Draymond light, like a backup Draymond in all the things that he's able to do, more so on the offensive side than the defensive side. But I thought slow-mo and that 3-minute stretch was really important going into the fourth. And then when Wiggins comes back at about the 8-minute mark of the fourth quarter, that's when him and Kaminga, again, combined, and I thought melded their games in which they've been individually having together. Wiggins attacks, Jonathan Kaminga. There was actually a play with 7 minutes left that I thought indicated just how well those two work together, where Wiggins attacks off the left wing, Jonathan Kaminga cuts, Wiggins dumps it off to him, and Kaminga goes, I believe, into the chest of Adams for a lay-in, and that got him to 26 points. And at that point, it was a 7-point game with about 7 to play. Wiggins had another tough take with 6 minutes left, had a floater off a pick and roll with 5.5 left. And then once the Warriors were up with 7 points, up 7 points with about 5.5 to go, this is where the Rockets began to kind of get back into this game, right? You're seeing Fred VanVleet getting to the free throw line. You're seeing them basically just dump the ball inside to Şengün, whether it was against Trayce Jackson-Davis or Kevon Looney. The Warriors, I think, did a good job at forcing throughout the game, but especially down the stretch, hurt them a little bit. The Rockets into basically just a one-on-one team. It was your turn, my turn, Jalen Green or Şengün. And Şengün was pretty unstoppable, and I'm a little surprised that he didn't play more in this game, but to his credit, I thought Steven Adams was also okay, and I thought Ime Udoka, he shied away from Şengün in the second half of the first meeting between these two teams too, and I don't know if it's more about what Şengün wasn't giving him offensively or the fact that the Warriors basically hunted him every single time down, both tonight and also back on November 2nd through the fourth quarter in OT. They hunted him every time down and just put him in pick and roll repeatedly. So, the Warriors ended up getting enough stops to make it a 93-85 game with 2 minutes and 10 seconds left. That was after Pods got, I thought, a little bit bailed out late in the shot clock, took VanVleet off the dribble, got to the foul line. And then from there, again, it was Şengün. Pods had a mid-range miss. Gary Payton II fouled Jalen Green in the backcourt to send him to the free throw line. Became a 4-point game. And that's where you thought that this was, oh my gosh, here we go again. Where are the Warriors looking to get that offense from? They struggled down the stretch of Denver. They obviously had 9 straight empty possessions against Oklahoma City last Wednesday. On Monday against Brooklyn, I thought they got enough points up, but they couldn't stop anybody to save their lives on Monday. And then, of course, the weekend before, it was San Antonio, which they only scored, I believe it was 13 points in the fourth quarter. So you wondered where they're going to get this offense from, and that's where they turned to Jonathan Kaminga. Because Kaminga, I thought it was, you're right, 5-1-0. It's his best game ever, and you hopefully can see more of that consistently. To me, I think that that's the next step. Again, I always believed that Kaminga had the kind of ability to do that. Now, this is the first time he's done it in crunch time. Like, the fact that Kaminga had the sort of dagger that he did is ultimately extremely impressive because he hadn't done it before. I don't know if there's a game in which he closed out to that kind of fashion. Like let's just go through that final shot. Jonathan Kaminga basically, and Dylan Brooks, the best perimeter defender for the Houston Rockets, is matched up on him. They just put it in his hands basically right out of the out of bounds. They gave him to Buddy Hield in the backcourt. He hands off to Kaminga. Kaminga waits for the screen to get Fred VanVleet and then attacks the seam exactly where he needs to, but also milking the clock in the process. They milk it down. I think Kaminga scored with like 8 seconds left in the shot clock, and at that point, he puts it away with 16.9 seconds left to give them that 2-bucket lead, and that was the game. So to me, this was the Jonathan Kaminga game that demonstrates progress. It's the kind of game that rewards the patience that the Warriors have showed, and also the patience that Kaminga has had to have with the Warriors. I'm sure riding the bench is not where he's wanted to be after starting this season in the starting lineup. He gets a chance to start tonight. He gets a chance to have the green light, and he gets a chance to take the stage and take the moment the way that he did. So it showed progress. I think it showed patience, and that's also the kind of game and performance, especially down the stretch, that gets you paid. This is a contract year for Kaminga, and 33 points a career high, 14 of which in the fourth quarter, played all 12 minutes, first game over 30 this season. That's the kind of game that builds on the confidence I believe he demonstrated at the end of last season, in which made him maybe, a little bit head over, putting the cart before the horse, felt like he was a max level player. Well, that was the kind of max level fourth quarter performance that Kaminga, I think everyone had been waiting for, but he finally gave it to us in a game that Curry did not play, that Draymond did not play, and he demonstrated against one of the top defenses, in fact, the number 2 defense in the NBA, that when you need it, he can go get you a basket. And that's what the Warriors have lacked over their last 5 games, someone that can get you a basket when you need it. And Kaminga took the game in his hands, and he took the victory for the Warriors at Chase Center. 888-957-9570 is the number. If you want to call in, discuss this performance. Again, the Warriors beat the Houston Rockets 99-93. We're going to hear from Steve Kerr in just a little bit, and I'm interested to hear his comments both about Kaminga, but also about the game itself, because I think this was somewhat of a template game, even without Steph Curry. I think even with Steph, this is the kind of game that you look for, and you see, okay, defensive intensity, creating a physical brand of defense is how you can stay in games. And then who's going to be your closer? Well, Curry obviously is that guy. But if you're doubling Steph, or Steph is a little bit smaller, 36 years of age, maybe the knee tendonitis is getting to him a bit, who can he go to? Who can be his running mate? And I think we found 2 candidates this evening that we were hoping could be those players, and I think can be for the remainder of, this was game 21. So, we got 60 games left, and that's what's also exciting about this game, is that you can see where the Warriors can take this performance and hopefully apply it in the future, say, tomorrow, when the Minnesota Timberwolves come to town on the tail end of a back-to-back. Curry looks like he's going to be playing tomorrow night. Draymond hopefully can give it a go, and then you can see how they can put the picture together. Well, hopefully they can put the big picture together, but I think the other guy outside of Kaminga that deserves a lot of credit is Andrew Wiggins. Coming into this game, this was one that Wiggins had to gut out, right? He played hurt tonight. He had the right ankle impingement, and Andrew Wiggins answered the bell. And it wasn't just the 23 points, 12 of which he had in the second quarter, which helped the Warriors build that halftime lead, but also the defense that he played. I don't think it's necessarily a coincidence that in the 2 games that the Warriors have played against Houston, Jalen Green has been very ineffective. Tonight he was 4 of 16, didn't make a 3. Really, the only place he was successful was at getting to the free throw line, and Andrew Wiggins was a big reason for that. And so it's not just the defense that he was playing on Jalen Green, but also the 9 rebounds. With someone like Draymond Green out, you're wondering, where are those boards going to go? And we'll get to the guy who had the most in just a minute. But I thought Andrew Wiggins being able to secure 9 rebounds, by the way, all of them defensive. And why I want to highlight this is a lot of times when you kind of go through the end of a game and into the box score, you look at Wiggins. Wiggins is typically a guy that when he has big rebounding games, it's because he's missing some tip-ins and he's getting a couple of those cheap offensive rebounds. There was none of that tonight. 9 defensive boards, 9 total rebounds. He was cleaning up possessions, and he was really forced to, because Looney played 26 minutes in this game. Trace Jackson-Davis played 20 minutes in this game. Kyle Anderson only played 13. Andrew Wiggins, a lot of the time, was one of the few bigs, essentially, and I thought he played more like a 4 tonight than Kaminga did. Kaminga played probably a little bit more like a 3, in my opinion, but Wiggins at that sort of 3, sort of 4, big position, he had to rebound the basketball, and it was essential against a team with 2 7-footers, Şengün, along with Steven Adams, and I thought his rebounding was also instrumental in this game. And speaking of rebounding, a couple of things off of that, because the Comcast Business Text line brought this up earlier. To me, it was both Kevon Looney and also Brandon Podziemski. And Pods made a lot of frustrating plays, as he normally does. And I was sitting in media row here at Chase Center, and there was a particular fan that, let's just put it this way, she's not a big Pods fan. And every time he made a mistake, it was very clear that she was going to highlight it. But I think what she missed was the fact that Pods did not play a perfect game, but it's an example of how you can still help the team when you're not scoring. Pods in this game, I felt like it was going to be a game that he was going to have to set up a lot of things for the Warriors. And the Warriors had, they had 36 makes. 19 assists is not a very high number for a team that typically moves the ball a lot, and there's a reason for that we can get to in a little bit. But Podziemski, 3 assists. He only turned the ball over 2 times, and in 37 minutes, primarily being on ball, that to me, he was not uncareful with the basketball on every possession, but he did a pretty good job of initiating things. And 12 rebounds, 11 of which on the defensive side. Again, they needed guys to gang rebound tonight against probably on paper a bigger Houston Rockets team. Paz did not shoot it well. He was 2 of 9 from the floor, just 1 of 3 from the three-point line. Did make 3 of 4 from the free throw line, which was another area of struggle for the Warriors. They missed 9 free throws again and were below 70%. Almost felt like that was the reason why Houston got back into this game. But I thought Pods, again, he finds ways to impact the game in a positive fashion, even when he's not scoring. And that is why in one breath, I understand sort of the frustration with him, because you wonder, well, he's bricking everything. And there's a couple of really bad misses. There was a top-of-the-key 3 he took where, gosh, I don't know if you could tell on television because the camera is on that side angle, but we looked at it basically straight on from media row, and he must have missed the rim by like 3 feet, and it hit the backboard. I felt bad for the board, but Pods, even when he's not shooting, still does other things like rebounding, like moving the ball, and he can play with anybody. And so what gets me excited about his performance in the future is that I do believe that he's not going to continue to shoot 35% from the field and around 20% from 3. I feel like that is ultimately going to regress positively for Pods. And so you look at all the other areas that he's able to help. Well, if and when he can shoot it at just a respectable rate, that's when he becomes a plus player like he was last year. And I don't think he's ever going to be a 25-point-per-game scorer. And this season, he's probably not going to get you close to 15 or 20 points per game. But if he can rebound, if he can pass, if he can stay in front of guys enough and not turn over the basketball, head-scratchingly so, then he's going to help this basketball team, whether he's starting, whether he's coming off the bench, or whatever role he's playing, because I think he's kind of an interchangeable player. So again, 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings with you here on Warriors Wrap Up live from Chase Center. If you want to give us a call, Cam, if we have any calls, please feel free to send them to me. We want to get as many people into the conversation as possible. I think we also learned tonight, and we sort of saw him emerge back into this role earlier, but Kevon Looney is back to being the starting center for the Warriors, and it has as much to do with Trace Jackson-Davis's struggles, which were also on display tonight. The Warriors didn't play a perfect game. Again, I thought TJD struggled, Buddy Hield struggled in this game, and has actually struggled for some time, and Moses Moody also really struggled in this game. But Kevon Looney, it looks like he's back to being in 2023 shape. And I know that was a season that was a little lost or forgotten because the Warriors got bounced in the second round by the Lakers. But if you remember, Kevon Looney was the second best player, I thought, in the first round series against the Kings. And it was as much about nobody else really being able to help Steph as it was Kevon Looney being an absolute menace. And the other part about it, too, is it's not just what he can do on the glass. You know, he got you another 10-rebound performance, a lot of it on the offensive end as well. But he can also stay in front of guards enough that you can't really hunt him in what Steve Kerr's calling pick-and-roll time. Like, actually, Kevon Looney, there was a possession late in the fourth quarter where he checked Jalen Green, forced a miss, and it gave me like 2018-19 Looney on James Harden flashbacks. And he's, I don't know, maybe it was just the Rockets uniform along with the guard and Looney kind of being in one of those mismatch. Typically, you see a big on a guard. It's a mismatch situation. You know, to me, that was quintessential Kevon Looney, and another quintessential Kevon Looney performance because he hasn't been, I don't know, maybe as good as 2022 this season so far, but he's been really, really good. And certainly coming off a season last year, Kevon Looney has been a guy that I think the Warriors have needed, and I think are going to need to step into the starting lineup as that center just because Trace Jackson-Davis, just like Pods for some period of time, is going through a little bit of a sophomore slump. Let's get out to Jonathan, who's at Chase Center. Jonathan at the game. Jonathan, what's going on? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. How are you?
I'm wonderful. This was so much better. It's been a long 10 days since the Brooklyn game, and it figured the very day after I ended up having concert tickets canceled, I was going to see Peter, Paul, and Mary, but it turns out Peter Yarrow is on the late stages of cancer. So it's been a roller coaster ride. So then to find out no Steph, no Draymond, I didn't know how they were going to pull it out, and I thought 0-2 going into the Heat game. And then, lo and behold, the team steps up. Kaminga with the 33 points, incredible, and then Wiggins with the 23. And everybody played their role. I saw so many other shots in the paint tonight. You know, not taking too many threes. They really pulled together as a team, and that's what I needed to see. So I'm just so proud of them. I'm glad I can enjoy the holidays a little bit now and take a little bit of a step back and relax, because I have a month to get ready for the big game, and I'm going to need it. So it feels great, but they got to keep going, because the one thing I do not want to see is I don't want them to sink any lower. I also now do not want them to beat the Heat on January 7th. So the more wins they can stack up now, the better. So this was great, and you know I'm ready for a break because I need it, but they got to keep pulling down wins, and we'll see where it ends up when I come back for Miami. But it's such a relief because I was really worried that I was going to be 0-2.
Well, I'm glad that they at least split with you, Jonathan. I'm actually glad you mentioned that, because the 500 is something that I think is, look, people think of 500 basketball as being like mediocre or average. But again, with the month of December that the Warriors are having to go through, right now they are 1-1 in the month of December. If they can get through this month at about 500, ideally you'd like to be better. But if you can go through this month, again, Denver, Houston, Minnesota 3 times, Houston again next Wednesday, Memphis, who's playing good basketball, Indiana, Los Angeles, you play both the Lakers and the Clippers, and then you wrap up with the Suns and the Cavaliers. There's a lot of really good basketball teams that the Warriors are going to have to play in a condensed period of time. You know, you got the back-to-back tonight and tomorrow. That's another reason why tonight was a big win, because you might not be able to get that victory against Minnesota tomorrow. They've been playing much better basketball as of late. And you also have a back-to-back coming up later on this month on the 27th and the 28th. So you play 3 and 4 3 games in 4 nights, that is, 2 different times in the same month. So it's not just the quality of opponent, but it's also the condensed amount of games these Warriors will have to play. And you're going to have to win some of those games. The idea of stacking victories isn't just, okay, well, we're better than this team, we're better than that team. Sometimes you have to fight through and win those scheduled games when you're not necessarily supposed to, because it helps you when eventually you lose a game like you do against Brooklyn, or you blow a game like Denver. Yes, you'd like to get those wins, but you can also grab a victory like tonight when on paper a lot of people feel like you got no shot. And that's how you break a 5-game streak. That's how you inject a little bit of life back in to your franchise and your fan base. And I know that it's early in the season still, but that's why when Kerr goes on 95-7 the game earlier this week and says, hey, look, we're still on pace for 50 wins, it's like, yes, the sky in a small time, in a week, is falling. But if you extrapolate it over the course of the season, the Warriors are still playing pretty good basketball. And I think tonight was an impressive performance to affirm that the process that they're trying to apply to this season of next man up, strength in numbers, whatever you want to call it, it's going to have its ups, like tonight. It's also going to have its downs, with Curry or without Curry, with Draymond or without Draymond. This is a win that I think gives them some confidence, and I think gives fans confidence that there's a different, again, kind of a different level that this team can summon. And without Curry, now they're 4-1. That marks, by the way, more wins than last season when Curry did not play. Curry only missed 8 games last year. They went 3-5, and 2 of those wins were against the lowly Jazz. So they last year could not effectively win a game without Curry against any sort of opponent worth their salt. They've already done it 4 times, and I would say 2 times, because they've beaten now the Rockets twice at relative full strength without Steph Curry. That is a significant step in the right direction for the Warriors. 888-957-9570. Cam, let's go to Eric in Millbrae. Wants to talk about the man of the hour, Jonathan Kaminga. Eric, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, man? Yeah, that was really impressive tonight. Warriors were really in a slump here, desperate for a win against a really good Houston team. Obviously, without Curry and Draymond, I didn't have a good feeling tonight. I thought maybe they could be competitive, but we come up short like all the previous games here and during their losing stretch. But love what I saw of him. That's what we need to see out of him, because Kaminga wants to get that huge payday like a franchise max player. These are the type of games we need to see at him. And we've seen flashes, obviously, from him. But the thing about being a superstar is you got to do it consistently. So these are the type of games we need to see more out of him. Obviously, you're not going to drop 30-plus every night like he's Curry, but just the consistency of being able to have, big shots, make big plays down the stretch there. And that was huge tonight. And I thought, obviously, Wiggins was another big pin, because he's the other key piece, because the Warriors are going to make a deep run. We have to consistently rely on, besides Curry, the 2 X factors got to be Kaminga, Wiggins, and obviously Draymond. But those 2 guys mainly, because when those 2 guys are on, and with Draymond, the Warriors are as good as any team, in my mind, in the Western Conference. But the problem is those 2 guys, Wiggins and Kaminga, haven't been. So hopefully a game like tonight, especially for Kaminga's confidence boost, where he feels like he can be a number 1 type player, this really elevates his game. So huge game tonight. But the thing is, you got another huge test tomorrow night. Minnesota, you got an elite Minnesota. I know they're struggling, but still they're a really good team. Western Conference final team last year. So it's going to be another tough matchup tomorrow night at Chase. And we need to see these guys lock in and have this type of mentality, because we don't want to see them revert back and really get their heads handed to them. But for tonight anyway, to end a losing streak, desperate for a win against a really good team, they got it done, and kudos to Kaminga. Really impressed by him, and let's see him do it again tomorrow night. Thanks for the time.
Appreciate it. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Look, I think obviously the next step for Kaminga is consistency, but I think we also have to keep in mind that this was something that Kaminga was allowed as far as the freedom to have this sort of game. And don't get me wrong, he sees the moment, but we will see, I believe, a different Kaminga when Curry is in all probability back tomorrow. Now, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but when Steph's in the game, I don't know. I don't think that Kaminga is going to be able to take 22 shots. To me, the guy that played within himself, probably closer to how he plays alongside Steph, is Wiggins. Because I think at his best, Wiggins is a 2. Kaminga showed tonight that he can, if necessary, step into that 1 role. And so where I'm most interested to see tomorrow against Minnesota, and if it's a close game, is how does Kerr approach crunch time offense with Kaminga on the floor, with Curry on the floor, and an ideal situation with Wiggins on the floor? Does the ball go through Curry? Does he give it to Kaminga? How does this kind of career night, 33 points, 14 of which in the fourth quarter, change the way that Kerr potentially approaches offensive sets down the stretch of games? He's already explicitly stated that is called pick and roll time, crunch time, clutch games, 5 minutes, 5 points or less, who you give the ball to, pick and roll time. Again, the fact that the Warriors scored 36 baskets on just 19 assists means that they were playing a lot of one-on-one. That is where Kaminga can be effective, where Wiggins can be effective, but they need a pick, I think, to kind of set things up and get the match they wanted. With Curry back in the game, again, I'm more interested to see how the offense, does it revert back to the one that struggled over the last 5 games, particularly down the stretch against Denver? Or is it like tonight where I think, and even when there were some moments where it looked like, all right, my gosh, here we go again, last 2 minutes, 7-point lead, it's shrinking, but Kaminga put the nail in the coffin because he seized his moment. I think Kaminga's had a couple of chances, particularly against, I believe it was Oklahoma City. In that last final 3-minute stretch, he was the only guy that got a good look off against OKC. He just missed them. There was a fadeaway in the paint. There was a quick blow-by of Hartenstein, but he missed most of the shots. Tonight, he made the shots, and so that's where the kind of make-or-miss approach is something that I do think we can take a look at moving forward. Let's all right, Cam, are you still there? If we can, I know I think Cam is taken off for a minute, so we're gonna roll here on Warriors Live. But to me, again, I think this points to a couple of things. This points to the growth of J.K. I think it points to the patience that ultimately the Warriors are rewarded for in having with Kaminga, but more importantly, the patience that Kaminga has had with the Warriors, not basically being given everything at once and seizing his moment. And I also think this is a game that you got to give a lot of credit to Andrew Wiggins for, because he was playing hurt in this game. The team needed him tonight. I don't think anybody foresaw Kaminga having a career night against the Houston Rockets, although ironically, the 2 games in which he has scored the most this season, the last one was 23, was against Houston. And that was back on November 2nd when he also closed out the Rockets with 6 points in overtime. But Wiggins was playing hurt with the ankle and was also a guy that, if you're down your top 3 players, Kaminga has certainly a case if you want to make it. But I think most people would recognize the Warriors' best 3 players as Curry, Draymond, and Wiggins. You're down your best 3 players, you kind of are at a significant disadvantage. Even though Houston was missing Eason, who's a good player for them, the Warriors do not win this game tonight without Andrew Wiggins. And I know that Kaminga was sensational, and he might be scoring a little bit more if Wiggins is out. I don't think they win this basketball game without Andrew Wiggins. He was awesome in this game, and in 33 minutes he was efficient. 3 of 4 from 3. The one area that he, along with the rest of the Warriors, cannot seem to solve is at the free throw line. Oh, my gosh. I think they had 2 trips as a team where they made both, or I should say all of their free throws. And Wiggins, unfortunately, kind of set the tone when he got fouled on a 3 and only made 1 of 3 on his first trip to the stripe. But Kaminga went 2 for 2, they had 3 tonight. Kyle Anderson went 2 for 2 on a trip. Buddy Hield went 2 for 2 on a trip. And then Kaminga, I also believe, went 2 of 2 on a trip, and he had 2 splits, including down the stretch. But the Warriors, free throw shooting, it's I don't think it's a problem that's necessarily going away, but it is something that they're going to be able to survive on certain nights like they did tonight. It just might make games a little closer than you like. Again, 888-957-9570 is the number. Let's go to Bud in Oakland. Cam, if we can. Let's go to Bud in Oakland. Bud, you're on 95.7 The Game. How are you?
What's good? How y'all doing over there, man?
Chilling.
Listen, I think this is a real good, solid win for the youngsters. We shot the 5-game win streak. You got your OGs on the sideline cheering you on. But seeing them playing a group of guys that they will have to play for the foreseeable future, and I mean the young core, seeing that they were able to get that win, that is a statement for them, letting them know that, okay, we can battle. When you go up against the guys that's around your age group and you can knock them up, that gives you a little bit of pep in your step, that tells you that you can battle. And when you see Kaminga have a game like this against guys that he's going to have to play in the league, and we were questioning where he's going to fit or about his future, this tells you that this team will be okay. If he can ball like this, and I understand, it is a team game, but if he can show out like this amongst his peers, guys of his stature, of his level, if he can have games like this, he'll be okay in this league, man. And like I said, for the young guys, like I told, I want to say Steiny and them. This is like an audition for them for Steve Kerr. It's like an audition. So as long as they can keep on putting up baskets, putting up wins, while the OGs are trying to heal up, man, it's gonna be looking good. I know it's one game, but hopefully these guys can keep it up. Thanks for taking the call.
I'm with it, Bud. Yeah, I'm with you. I think. Look, this is a win that absolutely is. It's massive. It's massive to get you back on track. Obviously, get you back in the win column, stop the streak, but also in the the overall scheme of the weekend and the condensed schedule, it's huge, and it's a massively big game for Jonathan Kaminga's confidence. I think it's big for the Warriors' psyche as a whole, because anytime you play the amount of players that they do and you struggle for essentially 10 days. You start to wonder if this thing is working and where it's going. And I don't doubt that doubt had crept into some of these guys' minds. You're wondering about your role. You're wondering, should I be playing or not playing over certain players? And so I think it's important, number one, for a player like Kaminga to have this performance, but number two, for the team to have some buy-in as to what their strategy is, which is next man up. Again, they were playing hurt. Wiggins was. Kaminga stepped into the starting lineup. And that's how you win 4 or 5 games without your best player, but without Curry. These are games that they don't win in the past. And are they going to be a 60-win basketball team? I don't think so. They might not even be a 50-win basketball team this season. But I think that what they're doing, to me, is more impressive than last season, because they're all seemingly a little more bought in, and there's more of a template for how this roster is currently constructed. We can talk about trades or additions or subtractions if you want, but as this roster is currently constructed, you can see the template for how they're going to beat teams and beat good teams. Houston is a good team. This team is 15-8. This is a team that just beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Houston Rockets are a team that is looking to take a step and compete in a very crowded Western Conference, as are the Golden State Warriors. So, yes, the Dubs have won 4 of 10. They're 4-6 in their last 10. They've been going through a bit of a down stretch, but this is a big win for them, and I believe that's. I think they can use it to kind of springboard off of and get back to where they need to, assuming that Curry's back tomorrow and perhaps even Draymond Green's back tomorrow. All right, let's take a break if we can. We're going to hear Steve Kerr on the other side, so stick around. This is Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game with Evan Giddings, 888-957-9570. The Warriors beat the Houston Rockets tonight 99-93. They snapped their 5-game skid. They get back on track, and more importantly, they close out an opponent on the front end of a back-to-back. We'll be back with more at Chase Center to talk about this after this on 95.7 The Game.
Oh no, my phone.
Hear that? It's the sound of a skater dropping her
Now back to Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game.
Well, I think perfectly put by the great Tim Roy. A dagger drive by Jonathan Kaminga helps the Warriors end their 5-game slide. They beat the Houston Rockets tonight by a final score of 99-93, and that was a perfectly executed final kind of drive the nail in the coffin possession from Kaminga. And not just the basket itself, but you can see there was patience. He milked the clock. He got the switch that he wanted. He got downhill, which is when his strength. He didn't settle. And that was the picture-perfect play from Kaminga this season. It's the most, I think, in control of a basketball game in a moment, in a game that the Warriors needed, and in a situation in which he was the guy. He was the option. That's the possession that you envision, I think, when the Warriors took him in 2021 with their top pick. That's the moment that they had envisioned for a player of his size, of his ability, of his talent, to be able to put a quality opponent, the number 2 defense in the NBA, away with that kind of drive and lay in over 2 Rockets, and to complete, again, a career evening, 33 points, 14 of which in the fourth quarter. He played every single second of the fourth. His first game over this season, over 30 minutes this season, played 33 total. That was progress in a nutshell. In about 10 seconds, Jonathan Kaminga showed us how much progress he's made, how much patience both the Warriors have displayed with him, and the patience that he's also had to have with Golden State, I'm sure. And that's also the kind of game that he can look at and say, this is why, number one, I deserve to be paid, and also conversely, why the Warriors might be looking at him this season and saying, we're going to match any restricted free agent offer sheet, because those are the kinds of moments that we foresee you at just 22 years of age having an abundance in your future. All right, it is time for our Crashing the Boards, brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, the Bay Area leader in collision repair. Talked about his impact across the game despite only being 2 of 9 from the floor, but Brandon Pajemski, 11 rebounds in this game, 10 of which defensive, needed all of them against a bigger, longer, potentially even more athletic Houston Rockets team. Down Steph, down Draymond, Pods was able to add to other areas not in the scoring column, and rebounding was it. A lot to like about this basketball game. If you want to chime in, 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings with you on Warriors Wrap-Up live from Chase Center. Cam, if we can, let's go to Steve Kerr, who's at the podium not too long ago, talking about the Warriors' 13th win of the season, now 13-8 on the year, back into the top 5 in the Western Conference. Here's what the head coach had to say. And that was Steve Kerr after the 99-93 Warriors win, talking primarily, I think, about the two players of the game, about Jonathan Kaminga and Andrew Wiggins. And each individually, they had impressive performances for different reasons. Kaminga, the closer, and Wiggins gutting it out when the two other best players on this basketball team were not available. This was a game that they both admitted, and I think Wiggins even said it after the game. Kerr said it, he wouldn't have played if Curry or Draymond were both available for this game. And so we'll actually see if Wiggins does play tomorrow on the tail end of a back-to-back when it looks like Curry's going to be available. Draymond dealing with a non-serious, non-long-term calf injury, we hope, might be back for that game. We'll see. But Wiggins was good on the glass offensively, particularly in the second quarter. He was strong, and then he also made some plays down the stretch. And it was, as I'll reiterate, it's the first game tonight against the Rockets that made me believe that Wiggins and Kaminga can work as a combination. I've been talking about the fact that I believe Kerr needs to lean more into those two on the floor together. And even though it hasn't worked prior, if they can figure out how to activate both of those guys, that takes this basketball team to a completely different level, because you need wings, particularly two-way wings, to succeed in the NBA. You need those players to be forceful on defense and on offense. And I think combining for 56 points, most that those two have ever combined for in a game, is exhibit A of that. And most importantly, they succeeded on the floor together. We've seen Wiggins and Kaminga play well. Like if you look at the box score, you'll see, Kaminga had a lot of points. He was a plus. Wiggins was a plus. He had a lot of points, yada, yada. But if you watch the game tonight, in the first quarter, it was Wiggins' turn. It was Kaminga's turn. In the second quarter, it was Wiggins' turn. And then you saw down the stretch, particularly in the fourth quarter, that both of those guys, because Wiggins had, I believe it was 5 points in the fourth quarter. Kaminga had 14. They had 19 of their 26. That's where you see them succeeding in the offense, in the flow together. And that we have not seen, at least for an extended period of time, in a victory against a quality opponent, shorthanded. We have not seen that before from the Warriors, and particularly those two players. Now, the next step is going to be, well, how can they play together alongside Curry and Draymond? I know a lot of people might just say, oh, well, this is obvious. All right, Kaminga's the number 2 option down the stretch alongside Steph. But again, that's not something that we have seen as much yet. And it's also, we didn't see it against Denver. We didn't see it last week during the 5 losses. So that, to me, is the next step of this crunch time offense that Kaminga took over tonight. Wiggins certainly aided, and the Warriors as a whole used to beat the Houston Rockets. Because, again, they only scored 99 points. A big reason why the Warriors won this game was of how well they played defensively, how well they gang rebounded, and I think how they kind of slowed and mucked the game up. Or they slowed the game down, but they mucked the game up. And I think that also is because Kerr, to his credit, he sort of stepped out of his comfort zone offensively. I thought for the wings, for Wiggins and Kaminga, Kerr leaned more into sort of just a general pick and roll. Again, the 36 makes, 19 assists indicates to me that there wasn't a ton of motion offense for as much as we're seeing, particularly in the fourth quarter. He just said, all right, if Şengün is on the floor, if Adams is on the floor, we're just going to give it to one of our two wings, play pick and roll, get the matchup we want. You can take it at a big, you can get on Fred VanVleet, whoever you like. They just basically picked their matchups and played kind of pick and roll basketball. And that's not something we're always accustomed seeing the Warriors do. I think they had to tonight because that's where Kaminga and Wiggins' strength right now lies. But they hunted Şengün and Adams relentlessly. Both of those players did in the second half. We also saw Steve Kerr basically go without a ball handler. We saw him use Pat Spencer in the first half. Down the stretch of that third quarter, it was Kyle Anderson that was calling the shots and directing traffic. And the Warriors basically turned this into a 1990s basketball game. They had some up and down and transition opportunities, but I think overall that this was a gritty, physical win that told us a lot about this team and how much they're able to do and how much they're not necessarily dependent all on Steph Curry. I know that the first 2 wins of the season, I think it was against Washington and it was against New Orleans, But the other 2 wins have come against Houston. For whatever reason, the Warriors have their number. Again, they beat them 15 straight times. But the fact that they're 4-1 without Steph, that's more wins now than last season completely without Curry. That's indicative that this team is not 100% dependent on the chef, and that's where you want to be. Like, if Curry misses time at age 36, God forbid, which might happen considering he's got knee tendonitis, and it has to be, I think, load managed over the course of the season, whether it's in-game in his minutes or maybe not playing back-to-backs, the Warriors are going to have to win some of these games. And so the fact that they've proved that they can do it more often than not, again, 21 games into the season, that is significant. And they also won this game without their best defensive player in Draymond. And so I think that this was all around a solid team win and demonstrates the type of template that they need to have even when Curry is back, which is a defensive energy, a defensive intensity, perhaps dumbed down offensively at points, and Steph Curry, whether he's in, whether he's out, doing enough to kind of execute offensively down the stretch and win those tight games. That's how this team can win consistently. And right now they're back to being above, or I think right at 50 wins, or that's the pace they're on right now at 13-8. But overall, it's because they seized the moment, and particularly Jonathan Kaminga seized his moment. This was just, I believe, his 6th start of the season. He didn't play particularly well in his first 5 starts of the season, but he probably played the best game of his career tonight, given the circumstances, given the situation. Jonathan Kaminga tonight was his night. 33, 14 in the fourth. He played with the confidence that I think he developed last season, and he put it all together tonight. And so now it's about putting that together consistently moving forward. And this game, I think, is one that can do wonders for him. And so I'm excited for Kaminga. I'm happy that he was able to again seize the moment, because the Warriors also needed him in order to get that win tonight. But it was a progress victory, a patience victory, and a potential victory that could get Kaminga paid down the stretch. So overall, I think a big win for the Warriors, a big win for Kaminga, and they'll look to try and stack it tomorrow night against the Minnesota Timberwolves. It's going to be at the same time, same place, Friday evening, Chase Center, Minnesota. Anthony Edwards and company comes to town, 7 o'clock tip, 6 o'clock Warriors live right here on 95.7 The Game. Tim Roy will have the call at 7. I'll be with you tomorrow night as well. Pre-game, post-game, all the rest right here from Chase Center. But in the meantime, a big thank you to everyone back in our 95.7 studios, our Warriors Network coordinator, Cam Williams, holding things down, as well as Chris O'Connell, as always, cutting up sound for you, making us sound fantastic here on Warriors Wrap-Up. So that will do it. A big thank you to everybody that's called in tonight. If we have any calls, pardon me, let's not make the same mistake twice. Cam, can we fit Shree and Fremont in before we wrap this thing up? Shree, how we doing? Gone? Gone. All right. Well, of course, I just pump faked everybody, so apologize for that. Let's go ahead and put a bow on this thing. Big thank you to Kim, big thank you to Chris, big thank you to everybody who called in, texted in, and we'll talk to you tomorrow night. Same place, same time, Chase Center, Warriors Live at 6 o'clock. Make sure to tune in all day tomorrow, 6 to 10, Bonte and Shasky, Steiny and Guru from 10 to 2, and then Willard and Dibbs from 2 to 6. My name is Evan Giddings, signing off from Chase Center, where the Warriors beat the Rockets again one final time, 99-93. We'll talk to you tomorrow night on 95.7 The Game.